The space station called Accord Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was a massive structure, built by 12 different species over thousands of years. Here, the greatest civilizations of the galaxy met to discuss trade, war, and peace. Ambassadors from worlds beyond counting walked its halls. Warriors from ancient empires guarded its doors. It was the center of everything. Ambassador stood near the main observation window and watched a small ship approach the station. His compound eyes could see every detail of the vessel. It was ugly. It was primitive. It looked like it had been built by children who had just discovered metal. "The humans have arrived," said his assistant, a younger with fresh wings. Made a clicking sound with his mandibles. It was the way of showing disappointment. "Yes, I see them. Such a small ship for such a loud species." The humans were new to the galaxy. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. In galactic terms, they were infants, bobbies crawling out of their cradle for the first time. The Confederacy had existed for 20,000 years. The Empire had conquered half a galaxy before humans learned to make fire. Yet here they were, invited to Accord Prime like they mattered. The human ship docked at the lower levels, watched as a small group emerged. There were only 6 of them. They wore simple gray uniforms with a blue symbol on the chest. They carried no visible weapons. They walked slowly, looking around at everything with wide eyes. The one in front was a male. He had dark hair and calm eyes. His name, according to the diplomatic files, was Captain Park. He led a team of 5 others. Security personnel, nothing impressive. Turned away from the window. "Come, let us greet our new guests. It would be rude to ignore them." The main hall of Accord Prime was filled with aliens of every shape and size. They were tall and thin, with 4 arms and wings that folded against their backs. There were massive reptiles, covered in scales that could stop a blade. There were small and quick, with 6 legs and bodies like liquid metal. And there were others, so many others. The humans looked tiny among them. Captain walked through the crowd with his team. A young soldier named stayed close behind him, was barely 20 years old. This was his first time off Earth. Everything amazed him and terrified him at the same time. "Stay calm," whispered Lieutenant. She was older than, with short hair and eyes that had seen too much death. "They are watching us, all of them. Do not show fear." "I am not afraid," lied. Almost smiled. "Good, keep lying until it becomes true." A warrior blocked their path. He was 3 meters tall, with claws that could tear through steel. His yellow eyes looked down at the humans like they were insects. "You are the humans," he said. His voice was deep and filled with contempt. "I expected something more impressive." Captain stopped walking. He looked up at them without any expression on his face. "We did not come here to impress you." They laughed. It was an ugly sound. "No natural weapons, no armor, no claws or fangs. How did your species survive on your planet? Did nothing try to eat you?" "Everything tried to eat us," said quietly. "We ate them back." They stopped laughing. Something in the human's voice made him uncomfortable. He stepped aside and let them pass. In the medical wing of the station, Doctor was studying the galactic database. She was the ship's doctor, and her job was to understand alien bodies so she could heal them if needed. But she had found something strange. Every species in the galaxy had detailed combat records. Battles won, battles lost, surrenders and retreats. It was normal. War was part of galactic life. But the human records were different. She scrolled through page after page of data. Human battles against pirates. Human battles against hostile colonies. Human battles against each other. The numbers did not make sense. There were no surrenders, not one. Every human conflict ended in victory or death. When humans lost, they died fighting, all of them, every single time. Sat back in her chair and felt cold. She had grown up on Earth. She knew humans were stubborn, but this was something else. This was something that the galaxy had not seen before. She closed the files and told no one. In the station cantina, Sergeant Menu was drinking something that tasted like engine oil mixed with fruit. He was a big man with a wide smile and hands that had killed more enemies than he could count. He did not look dangerous. That was the point. A group of soldiers sat nearby. They were loud and drunk and looking for entertainment. One of them noticed standing alone near the bar. The young human was trying to order food, but he did not understand the alien menu. The walked over. He was smaller than the others but still twice his size. He pushed the human with one clawed hand. "Look at this," he said to his friends. "A baby predator, so soft, so weak. I could break it with one finger." Stumbled but did not fall. He looked at them with steady eyes. "You should not touch me," he said. The aliens laughed. "Or what? Will you cry? Will you call for your mother?" His hands formed fists. His heart was pounding. He wanted to fight. Every part of him screamed to fight, but he remembered his training. He remembered what had taught him. "Not yet, not here, not like this." He relaxed his hands and stepped back. "I will not fight you." The spat on the ground near his feet. "Coward, all humans are cowards." Lieutenant appeared at his side. She put a hand on his shoulder and pulled him away gently. "Not yet," she whispered in his ear. "Let them underestimate us. It is a gift they are giving us. Accept it." They left the cantina together. They laughed and called them names. They did not respond. But Minu stayed behind. He finished his drink slowly and watched the aliens with eyes that had no warmth in them. He was still smiling. He was always smiling, but those who knew him understood what that smile meant. It meant he was remembering their faces for later. Later that night, Captain met with Ambassador in a private chamber. That was polite but distant. He saw humans as primitives, useful perhaps, but not equals. "Your species is young," said. "You have much to learn about the galaxy." "We are fast learners," replied. Made the clicking sound again. "We shall see. The galaxy is dangerous. Many species have risen and fallen. The strong survive. The weak are forgotten." Nodded slowly. "On Earth we have a saying, it is not the strongest that survives, it is not the fastest, it is the one that refuses to die." Before could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Voices screamed through the communication systems. Something had been detected at the edge of the system. Something massive. Something old. Something that should not exist. His compound eyes went wide with ancient fear. His wings trembled. He knew what was coming. Every species in the galaxy knew the stories. The devourer swarm had awakened. And nothing would ever be the same. The sensor screens showed something impossible. At first, the operators thought it was a glitch, a mistake in the system. But then the images became clear, and the truth was worse than any error. A cloud of darkness moved through space toward the Accord system. It was not made of gas or dust. It was made of bodies, billions of bodies, living ships that ate matter and turned it into more of themselves. The devourer swarm had not been seen in 3,000 years. Most young species thought they were just a story, a legend to scare children. They were wrong. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of his warship and watched the swarm approach. He was the highest military commander of the Empire. His scales were dark green, marked with scars from 100 battles. He had never known fear. He felt it now. "How many?" he asked his officers. "We cannot count them, Commander. The sensors cannot process the numbers. There are too many." Gripped the railing in front of him. His claws left marks in the metal. "Then we will kill them until we can count what remains. All ships, prepare for combat." The fleet was the largest in the galaxy. 200 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. They moved into formation with perfect discipline. They had conquered half the known systems. They feared nothing. That was about to change. On Accord Prime, Ambassador was running. His wings carried him through the corridors faster than his legs could. He burst into the command center where representatives from all 12 species had gathered. "The swarm is real," he gasped. "It is here. We must evacuate. We must flee." "Flee where?" asked a delegate. "The swarm does not stop. It does not rest. It will follow us to the end of the galaxy." Panic spread through the room. They were frozen in collective terror. Their hive mind was overwhelmed with fear signals from every member of their species. They were already calculating escape routes. The smaller species were crying out in languages that had no words for this kind of horror. In the corner of the room, the human stood quietly. Captain watched the chaos with calm eyes. His team gathered around him. Minu and they said nothing. They waited. "Captain," said quietly, "the swarm consumes organic matter. It can destroy entire planets in days. We have no weapons that can stop something this large." Nodded, "Then we will need bigger weapons." He activated his communication device and sent a single message back to Earth. It contained only 3 words. "Send everything, now." Outside the station, the battle had begun. The fleet engaged the outer edge of the swarm. Their weapons were powerful. Each shot destroyed thousands of swarm organisms. But for every 1,000 they killed, 10,000 more appeared. Commander watched his ships fight. They were brave, they were strong, they were dying. A swarm cluster broke through the defensive line and attacked his flagship. The living ships latched onto the hull and began eating through the metal. Could hear his crew screaming through the internal communications. "Commander, we are being boarded," his second officer reported. "The creatures are inside the ship." Drew his blade. It was a weapon passed down through his family for generations. "Then we will meet them in the corridors. Do not surrender." He fought for 2 hours. His blade cut through hundreds of swarm creatures. They were small, about the size of a human child, with too many legs and mouths that never stopped biting. They felt no pain. They felt no fear. They only felt hunger. When rescue ships finally reached him, was the only survivor of his crew. His scales were torn. His blood covered the walls, but he was still standing, still fighting. They carried him back to Accord Prime. He had lost 40 ships in 2 hours. The swarm had not even slowed down. In the station medical bay, doctor treated the wounded. There were so many, with broken wings, with missing limbs, whose liquid bodies had been partially consumed. She worked without rest, her hands covered in alien blood of every color. Helped her? The young soldier had never seen anything like this. On Earth, he had trained for combat, clean combat, ship-to-ship battles and ground operations. This was different. This was a nightmare made real. "How do we fight something like this?" he asked. She did not look up from her patient. "I do not know, but humans have always found a way. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We survived because we do not know how to stop fighting. But this is different." "Yes, it is, so we will be different too." On the command deck, Captain met with the alien leaders. Was there, along with representatives from every species. They were broken, hopeless, waiting for death. "We must call for help," said. "Every species, every fleet, every ship that can carry a weapon, we must call them all." Laughed bitterly. "Help from who? We are the strongest military powers in the galaxy. If we cannot stop the swarm, no one can." "What about the humans?" asked a small voice. Everyone turned to look at. He stood alone in his gray uniform, small and soft compared to the armored aliens around him. Made a disgusted sound. "The humans, they have no fleet, no army. They are children playing at being a species. What could they possibly do?" Did not respond. He simply looked at his communication device. A message had arrived. He read it twice to make sure he understood. "The call has been answered," he said quietly. Wings trembled. "What call? What do you mean?" "When humans face extinction, we do not panic. We do not flee. We prepare. We have been preparing since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what dangers lived there." The room was silent. Something in the human's voice made them all uncomfortable. "Our fleet will arrive in 6 hours," continued. "I suggest you move your ships away from the combat zone. Things are about to get very loud." Stepped forward. His wounded body still towered over the human. "You expect us to believe that your primitive species can do what the Empire could not." Looked up at him with eyes that held no fear, only patience. "Commander, your species conquered half the galaxy through strength. You are predators, hunters. You take what you want because you are powerful." "Yes, that is what we are. Humans are different. On our world we were not the strongest, we were not the fastest. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. Everything tried to kill us. The cold, the heat, the animals, the diseases, even our own planet tried to destroy us." "Then how did you survive?" Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "We decided we would not die. We looked at everything that wanted to kill us and we said no. We hunted the hunters. We ate the predators. We conquered our planet not because we were strong, but because we refused to accept any other option." He turned to face the window, where distant flashes of light showed the swarm destroying another ship. "The swarm is hungry. It has eaten civilizations. It has consumed worlds. But it has never faced a species that does not know how to surrender. It has never faced humans." 6 hours later, the sky changed. A tier in space opened near the station, then another, then 100 more. Ships began pouring through, human ships. They were not beautiful like vessels or massive like warships. They were ugly, brutal, covered in weapons that the aliens did not recognize. The flagship came through last. It was called the Eternal Vigilance. It was 3 kilometers long and built for one purpose only: war. On the observation deck, watched the human fleet arrive. He counted the ships. Then he counted again. Then he stopped counting because the number was too large. "Where did they come from?" he whispered. "Where were they hiding all of this?" Beside him, Captain spoke quietly. "We were not hiding, Ambassador. You simply never asked to see." The communication channels filled with a new voice. It was calm and cold and absolutely certain. "This is Admiral Lee of the Human Defense Fleet. We have received your distress call. Stand down and clear the combat zone. We will handle this from here." The swarm turned toward the new arrivals. It sensed more food, more matter to consume. It did not understand what was about to happen. No one did. The real monsters had arrived. Admiral Lee stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance and studied the enemy. She was 62 years old. Her hair was gray and cut short. Her face was covered with scars from battles that had killed better soldiers than her. She had served in the military for 40 years. She had never lost a war. She did not plan to start now. "Report," she said. Her tactical officer responded immediately. "The swarm consists of approximately 4 billion individual organisms. The main body is moving toward the station at standard attack speed. Estimated time to contact is 3 hours. And the Queen?" Detected at the rear of the formation. Moon-sized organism. She controls the entire swarm through biological signals. Nodded slowly. "Kill the Queen, kill the swarm." "Yes, Admiral, but reaching her through 4 billion defenders will be difficult." Almost smiled. "Difficult, yes, that is why they sent us." The alien fleet commanders requested an emergency communication. They wanted to coordinate strategy. They wanted to plan together. They wanted to discuss tactics. Refused the call. "Admiral," her communications officer said carefully, "Commander is demanding to speak with you. He says it is urgent. Tell him to stay out of our way. This is not a negotiation. He is threatening to withdraw his remaining forces." "Good, that will keep them alive long enough to watch." On Accord Prime, the alien leaders gathered at the observation windows. They had never seen anything like what was happening. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination. No wasted movements, no hesitation. Every ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. Ambassador stood next to Commander. The warrior was bandaged and bleeding, but he refused to rest. He wanted to see this. Their formation is strange, said. They are not protecting their flanks. They are exposing themselves deliberately. His compound eyes tracked the human ships. They are not defending, they are attacking, all of them at once. That is suicide. Is it? The first human ships reached the swarm. They did not fire from a distance like they had done. They flew directly into the mass of living organisms. Their weapons blazed in every direction. They cut paths of destruction through the enemy like knives through flesh. The swarm tried to surround them. It tried to consume them the way it had consumed the fleet. But something was wrong. The human ships did not stop. They did not slow down. When one ship was damaged, it kept fighting. When a ship was dying, it turned toward the nearest cluster of swarm and accelerated. The aliens watched human ships ram directly into enemy formations. The explosions were massive. Each dying ship took thousands of swarm organisms with it. Scales went pale. They are using their own vessels as weapons. Yes, whispered, they are. On the Eternal Vigilance, Admiral received damage reports with no emotion. Ship after ship was lost. Crew after crew died. She noted each one. She would remember their names later. Right now, there was only the mission. The enemy is adapting, her tactical officer reported. They are trying to avoid our suicide runs. Then switch to Pattern 7. Force them to concentrate. Admiral, Pattern 7 will cost us at least 30 more ships. I know, do it. The human fleet changed formation. They began herding the swarm, pushing billions of organisms into and groups. The aliens did not understand what they were doing. Then they saw the bombers. Human bomber ships had been hiding behind the main fleet. They carried weapons that glowed with a light the aliens had never seen before. What is that? Asked. His eyes widened. He recognized the readings on his scanner. Antimatter. They have weaponized antimatter. But that is forbidden. Every galactic treaty bans the use of antimatter weapons. Laughed, it was a hollow, amazed sound. The humans never signed those treaties. They never planned to. The bombers released their payload. The explosions erased matter from existence. Entire sections of the swarm simply vanished. Millions of organisms died in seconds. And still the humans kept pushing forward. On Accord Prime, the battle had reached the station. Swarm organisms broke through the human lines and attacked the structure directly. They cut through the outer hull and poured inside. Alarms screamed through every corridor. Captain gathered his team at the security center. They had been given simple orders. Hold the civilian sectors. Protect the survivors. There are 15 of us, said, checking her weapon. The sensors show thousands of swarm organisms in the station. Then we will kill thousands, replied. They moved through the corridors in tight formation. The station was chaos. Aliens ran in every direction. Bodies lay on the ground. The swarm had already killed hundreds. They found the first group of organisms near the medical bay. The creatures were small and fast, with bodies like insects and mouths full of razor teeth. They saw the humans and charged. Fired first. Her shots were precise. Each one killed. She moved like water flowing from target to target without wasting a single motion. In 30 seconds, 50 swarm creatures lay dead. But more were coming, always more. They fought for an hour, then 2, then 3. Ammunition ran low. They switched to backup weapons. When those were empty, they used blades. When blades broke, they used their hands. Fought beside, the young soldier had been afraid before. He was not afraid now. There was no room for fear. There was only the next enemy and the next and the next. A swarm creature jumped at his face. He caught it with his bare hands and crushed it against the wall. Alien blood covered his arms. He did not stop. He could not stop. Minyu laughed as he fought. It was a terrible sound. The aliens nearby looked at him with horror. They could not understand how a creature could make that noise while killing. "What is wrong with him?" a wounded asked. Answered while bandaging the alien's wounds. "Nothing is wrong. That is how humans cope with fear. We laugh. We make jokes. We find absurdity in horror because it helps us keep fighting." "That is insane." "Yes, we know." The battle continued. Took 3 wounds but kept fighting. Took a hit to his shoulder and did not slow down. They held the sector for 9 hours. 9 hours against an endless enemy. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found the human team still standing. The corridor around them was filled with dead swarm organisms, thousands of them. The walls were covered in blood, both human and alien. Commander was with the reinforcement team. He had come to fight beside them, despite his wounds. He stopped at the entrance and stared at the scene. Stood in the center of the carnage. Her uniform was torn. Her body was covered in cuts, but she was still holding her weapon, still ready. "You held this position alone," said. 15 humans against thousands. Walked forward slowly. He was limping. Blood dripped from his hand. "We were ordered to hold, so we held. My best warriors could not have done this. I had a full battalion defending the eastern sector. They broke in 2 hours. Your warriors are strong, but they fight to win. Humans fight because we do not know how to stop." Was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to his aide and spoke in a voice that was almost afraid. "Find me everything about Earth, everything about human history. I need to understand what these creatures really are." Later in his private quarters, read through the human database. He learned about their wars, not the wars they fought in space, the wars they fought on their own planet, against each other. He read about the world wars, millions dead, cities burned, weapons that could destroy everything. He read about the ancient battles. Thermopylae, where 300 soldiers held against an army. Stalingrad, where humans froze and starved but refused to surrender. He read about the trenches, where soldiers lived in mud and death for years. About the nuclear bombs that ended cities in seconds. About the biological weapons and the chemical weapons and the weapons humans created just to make death more painful. His claws trembled as he scrolled through the data. Humans had killed more of their own kind than the swarm had consumed in 10,000 years. They had practiced war against the most dangerous enemy they knew, themselves. Understood now, he finally understood. Humans were not prey that had learned to fight. They were predators that had learned to wear masks. And he had just watched them take those masks off. On the observation deck, saw something new appear on the sensors. The swarm queen was moving. The moon-sized organism was coming toward the station herself. Admiral's voice came through the communication system. It was still calm, still certain. "All ships prepare for Helios Protocol. This ends now." Did not know what Helios Protocol was. He was about to find out. The swarm queen moved like a mountain through space. She was larger than most moons. Her body was covered with billions of smaller organisms that lived on her surface like parasites. She controlled every creature in the swarm through signals that traveled faster than light. Where she looked, the swarm attacked. Where she pointed, civilizations died. She had existed for longer than any species could remember. She had consumed worlds beyond counting. She had never faced anything she could not eat. Today would be different. Admiral watched the queen approach on her tactical display. The creature was beautiful in a horrible way, ancient and terrible and absolutely certain of her own power. "Helios Protocol is ready," her weapons officer reported. "Tell me the cost." 12 ships, Admiral. They will not survive delivery." Closed her eyes for a moment. 12 ships, 12 crews, hundreds of lives. She knew many of them personally. She had trained with some of them, promoted others. Ask for volunteers only. Admiral, we already have more volunteers than we need. The crews are fighting for the honor. She opened her eyes. Of course they are. On the bridge of the destroyer Hammer of Dawn, Captain Moon prepared his ship for the final run. He was 34 years old. He had a wife back on Earth, a daughter who was learning to walk. He would never see them again. All hands, he said through the ship's communication system. You know the mission. You know the cost. Anyone who wants to leave, the escape pods are open. No one will think less of you. No one moved. No one left. Good, then let us show these things what humans are made of. The 12 ships assigned to Helios Protocol moved into attack formation. They carried the largest antimatter weapons ever built. Each one was powerful enough to destroy a small planet. Together, they could wound a god. The swarm sensed the threat. Billions of organisms moved to intercept. The space between the human ships and the Queen became a wall of living flesh and teeth. Music, Captain said suddenly. His bridge crew looked at him with confusion. I want music playing, something loud, something human. If we are going to die, we will die with a song on our lips. The speakers came alive with sound, ancient music from Earth, drums and voices and instruments that had not been played for centuries. The crew began to sing along. The aliens monitoring the battle heard the broadcast. They heard humans singing while flying toward death. They could not understand. Music was for celebration, for joy, not for suicide runs against impossible enemies. On Accord Prime listened to the human voices. They were not afraid, they were not sad, they sounded almost happy. Why do they sing? He asked. Commander stood beside him, watching the tactical display. Because they are insane, because they are monsters, because they are the most terrifying species this galaxy has ever seen. The 12 ships hit the swarm wall. They did not try to avoid the organisms. They flew through them. Their hulls tore through flesh and chitin. Thousands of creatures died against their armor. One ship exploded, then another. The swarm was too thick, too dense, but the survivors kept pushing forward. Captain's ship broke through first. He could see the Queen now. Up close, she was even more horrible. Her skin was covered with eyes that watched him approach. Her mouth opened in a scream that could be heard through the vacuum of space. For Earth, said quietly. For humanity, for my daughter. He pressed the button. The antimatter detonation was visible from 3 star systems away. It punched a hole in the Queen's side large enough to fit a city. She screamed again, and this time the scream was pain. The other ships followed. One by one, they delivered their weapons. One by one, they died in fire that erased matter from existence. The Queen tried to flee. For the first time in her eternal life, she tried to run, but the damage was too great. Her control signals weakened. The swarm began to fall apart. Admiral watched the tactical display update. The Queen was dying. The swarm was collapsing into chaos. All ships, she ordered, finish it. The human fleet descended on the wounded Queen like wolves on injured prey. They tore her apart piece by piece. Every weapon fired until empty. Every ship attacked until destroyed or victorious. It took 6 hours to kill her, 6 hours of constant battle, but in the end she died. The largest creature in galactic history, the destroyer of civilizations, the eater of worlds. Killed by the youngest species in the galaxy. On Accord Prime, the fighting had stopped. The swarm organisms went mad when the Queen died. They attacked everything, including each other. Then they simply stopped. Their biological programming had no instructions for a world without their Queen. Captain sat in a corridor surrounded by dead creatures. He was too tired to move. His wounds had been bandaged by, but he needed rest. Real rest. Sat next to him. The young soldier was different now. His eyes had changed. They had seen too much death, killed too many enemies. He would never be the same boy who had left Earth. "We survived," said. His voice was hollow. "Yes, we did. Why does it not feel like victory?" Looked at the bodies around them. Human bodies, alien bodies, swarm bodies, all mixed together in the aftermath of survival. Because victory is not happiness. Victory is just being alive when the enemy is dead. The happiness comes later, if it comes at all. Commander found them an hour later. The warrior walked through the carnage without expression. He stopped in front of and stood there for a long moment. Then he did something no had ever done before. He knelt. "I was wrong about your species," he said. "I called you cowards, I called you weak. I was a fool." Looked up at him with tired eyes. "You were not wrong, we are weak, we are soft, we break easily and heal slowly, but those things do not matter." "What does matter?" "That we do not stop, that we cannot stop. You asked me once what humans are, I will tell you now." Stood slowly. Every muscle in his body screamed with pain, but he stood anyway. "We are the species that looked at a universe full of things that could kill us and decided we would live anyway. We are the species that hunted mammoths with sticks, that crossed oceans in wooden boats, that flew to our moon in metal cans held together with hope." He met's eyes without fear. "We are the species that makes the universe reasonable. If the universe says we should die, we say no. And we keep saying no until the universe gives up or we do, and we never give up." Rose to his feet. His scales had gone pale. He had faced the swarm queen. He had killed thousands of enemies. But this small, wounded human frightened him more than anything he had ever encountered. "What are you?" he whispered. Smiled. It was the tired smile of a predator who had finished a hunt. "We are what happens when prey refuses to die. We are the backup you called for. We are human." In the medical bay, treated the last of the wounded. The station was filled with survivors, thousands of aliens who would have died without human intervention. Minyu sat in the corner, eating something from a ration pack. He was still smiling. He had smiled through the entire battle. Now that it was over, his smile had finally become real. "The young lived," told him. "The one you carried out of the combat zone. She will make a full recovery." "Good, she reminded me of my niece. Same way of being scared but trying not to show it." Sat down next to him. Her hands were shaking. She had been steady through the entire fight. Now that it was over, her body was remembering how to be afraid. "What do we do now?" she asked. Minyu offered her some of his food. "We rest, we heal, we remember the people we lost, and then we do it all over again when the next threat comes." "You think there will be another threat?" "There is always another threat. That is why humans exist. To face the things that should not be faced, to fight the things that cannot be fought, to be the monsters that hunt other monsters." He looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the wreckage of the swarm queen floated in the darkness. Somewhere out there, other species were receiving news of what had happened. The galaxy was learning what humans really were. And it would never forget. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Accord Prime. The station had been repaired. The dead had been buried. The galaxy had changed forever. The Great Council Chamber was filled with representatives from every known species. 12 civilizations sat in their assigned sections, watching the central platform with a mixture of respect and fear. Today, they would vote on something unprecedented. Ambassador rose to speak. His wings were still healing from injuries sustained in the battle, but his voice was strong. 3 months ago, we faced extinction. The Devourer swarm, an enemy we believed to be legend, attacked our station and our fleets. We called for help from every corner of the galaxy. Most species sent what they could, but only one species answered with everything they had. He turned to look at the human delegation. The humans lost 60% of their fleet in the battle. 60%. They sacrificed more than any other species. They asked for nothing in return. They simply fought until the enemy was dead. The chamber was silent. Every alien remembered what they had witnessed: the suicide runs, the singing soldiers, the antimatter fire that had killed a god. I move that humanity be granted a permanent seat on the Galactic Council, not as a minor species, not as observers, as full members with equal voice and equal vote. No one objected, no one dared. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Lee walked to the central platform to accept the honor. She wore her dress uniform, decorated with medals from a dozen campaigns. Her face showed no pride, no joy, only the weight of everything that had been lost. "On behalf of humanity, I accept this seat," she said. "But I did not come here for politics. I came here to speak plainly." The chamber grew still. The swarm is dead, but it will not be the last threat we face. This galaxy is old and full of things that want us dead, things we have not discovered yet, things that are waiting in the darkness between stars. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every species. "Humanity will be ready. We are always ready. We have spent our entire existence preparing for threats we could not imagine. It is what we do. It is who we are." Her voice hardened. "But let me be clear about something. We answered your call because we choose to protect life, all life. We believe that existence is worth fighting for. That is why we came." She paused. "But pray you never become the threat we answer for. Pray you never give us a reason to turn our attention toward you, because we fight with the same ferocity against anything that threatens the innocent. Anything. Do you understand?" The chamber understood. Every species understood. The warning was gentle, but the meaning was absolute. Humanity was not just an ally. They were a force of nature. They could protect or they could destroy, and the galaxy would never be sure which they would choose until the moment came. The council session ended. Representatives filtered out of the chamber in small groups, speaking in hushed voices about what they had witnessed. The political landscape of the galaxy had shifted. Nothing would be the same. On the observation deck, Captain stood alone, looking out at the stars. His wounds had healed mostly, but some scars would remain forever. He did not mind. Scars were proof of survival. Lieutenant found him there. She walked slowly, still recovering from her injuries. The doctors had wanted her to rest longer. She had refused. "The Admiral offered you a promotion," she said. "You turned it down." "Yes." "Why?" Was quiet for a moment. "Because I am not finished. There is more work to do, more people to protect. I cannot do that from behind a desk." Nodded, she understood. They were soldiers, not politicians. Their place was in the field, not in meeting rooms. "The crew of the Pale Dawn is being reassigned," she said. "They are asking if you will lead them again." "What do you think?" Almost smiled. "I think they would follow you anywhere. I think we all would." Turned to look at her. "Even after everything we have been through." "Especially after everything we have been through. You kept us alive when we should have died 100 times. That is not something anyone forgets." He nodded slowly. "Then tell them we have a new mission. We are going to patrol the outer systems. Find the places where the swarm came from. Make sure nothing else is waiting to emerge." "That sounds dangerous." "It is. Are you coming?" Did not hesitate. "Of course, someone needs to keep you alive." In the station's orphan center, Sergeant Minu sat with a small child. She was the one he had saved during the battle. Her parents had died in the fighting. She had no other family. Minu did not speak language well. The child did not speak Korean at all, but they communicated anyway, through gestures, through shared meals, through the simple act of being present. "I am going to adopt her," Minu told Doctor later that day. Looked at him with surprise. "You, a single soldier, raising an alien child." "Why not? She needs a family. I need a reason to keep going. Seems like a good match." "The paperwork will be impossible." Minu grinned. I survived the Swarm Queen. I can survive paperwork. He filed the adoption papers that afternoon. It would take months to process. The bureaucracy of 12 species was slow and complicated, but Minu was patient. He would wait. In the meantime, he taught the little to laugh. It was a strange sound, different from human laughter, but it was real, and that was enough. Doctor published her research on human combat psychology 3 weeks after the battle. The paper spread through the galactic academic community like wildfire. Every species wanted to understand how humans could do what they did. The paper described everything: the refusal to surrender, the ability to function through pain and fear, the capacity for violence that could be turned on and off like a switch, the strange mix of compassion and brutality that made humans unique. Within a year, the paper became required reading at every alien military academy. Officers studied human tactics and tried to understand human thinking. Most failed. Human psychology was too strange, too contradictory, too alien for them to truly grasp. But they learned enough to know one thing: never fight humans unless absolutely necessary, and if you must fight them, be prepared to die. Private returned to Earth for a short leave. He visited his parents in their small apartment in a city he barely recognized. Everything seemed smaller now, quieter, more fragile. His mother cried when she saw him. His father said nothing, but his eyes were wet. "You have changed," his mother said. "Yes. Are you still my son?" Hugged her, she felt small in his arms, breakable. He had held weapons heavier than her. He had killed things larger than their entire building. But she was still his mother, and he was still her son. "I am still me," he said, "just with more memories than before." He stayed for 2 weeks. He slept in his old room, surrounded by old posters and old books and old dreams. He ate his mother's cooking and listened to his father's stories and pretended that nothing had changed. When he returned to duty, he had been promoted to sergeant. He would lead his own team now, train new recruits, show them what it meant to be human. On the last day, his father walked him to the transport station. "I was in the military once," his father said. "Long time ago, before you were born." "I know. I never saw real combat, never faced what you faced, but I know the weight you carry now. I see it in your eyes." Said nothing. "You do not have to carry it alone. Remember that. Even the strongest soldier needs someone to lean on." Hugged his father. It was the first time he had hugged him in years. The old man felt fragile, like the whole world felt now. "I will remember." The transport lifted off, carrying back to the stars, back to his duty, back to the endless mission of protecting humanity and the galaxy it had adopted. On Earth, in a small park surrounded by tall buildings, children played beneath a warm sun. They chased each other and laughed and had no idea that 3 months ago, their species had saved the galaxy. They did not know about the swarm or the queen or the 12 ships that had died to kill her. They only knew that the sky was blue, and the grass was green, and tomorrow held infinite possibility. A teacher sat on a bench nearby watching them play. She was old now, with gray hair and gentle eyes. She had been a soldier once in a war that most people had forgotten. She knew what humans could do, what they had done, what they would do again. But looking at the children, she felt hope instead of fear. Because that was the other side of humanity, the side that the aliens did not see. The capacity for violence was matched by a capacity for love. The willingness to destroy was balanced by a desire to create. Humans were monsters, yes, but they were also dreamers. They built gardens in the ashes of their wars. They raised children in the shadows of their weapons. They found beauty in a universe that wanted them dead. That was the secret the galaxy had not yet learned. Humans were not just the backup that answered when called. They were the hope that survived when everything else burned. The teacher smiled and watched the children play. The sun was warm. Tomorrow held infinite possibility. And somewhere out there, among the stars, humanity kept watch. Ready to fight. Ready to die. Ready to save the galaxy again if needed. Because that was what humans did. That was who they were. That was who they would always be.